Hey, my name is Jesse. This is just another podcast where I talk with different individuals about different things in life. This talk was with Sasha Jelten, a music producer and music teacher. He's a really cool dude and a very friendly human. I've been fortunate enough to make several different songs with him. In this dialogue, the following topics were covered: keeping the creative juices flowing, subconscious inspiration from other artists, getting outside of our creative routines, sound design, teaching music, singles versus albums, aversion to particular types of music, and imagining where the music being created will be played. We are on. Okay, so music. Is it okay if we start off with music and just
Yeah,
talk about that?
let's talk about
So,
music.
um, what have you been like thinking about in relation to music lately? Have you been thinking about it, or like have you been inspired by any particular genre, or like what's been fascinating about music for you recently?
Oh, yeah. Well, recently as far as music routine goes, I recently started pushing myself to just get some sort of musical idea down every day again. I've done that in the past,
Okay.
but there was a long period of time where I wasn't doing it. And just in the last 2 weeks, I've started to just sort of push myself to just record some sort of beat or simple idea down, just to keep the creative juices flowing.
Okay.
And yeah, as far as genres go, there's certainly artists that inspire me. Um,
All right.
like
What's one artist that's been inspiring you recently?
um, recently, uh, well, Anomaly, Canadian artist, just released a new album. I haven't actually listened to all of it yet, but
And what is it
uh,
that this artist is doing that is you find fascinating?
well, one of the things that Anomaly does that I think is really unique and fascinating is he is a very talented producer. So his music production is very tight in a sort of electronic music kind of way, but he is very much a jazz pianist, and that is very forward in the music that he does. So his music is very uh, presents his prowess on a keyboard, but is very uh, also very well produced, not just a piano bit in a um, surrounding thing. It's like a whole package. But
Okay, so it's a mixture of like high caliber jazz pianist plus high caliber music production producer kind of thing. Is that right?
exactly,
And then
yeah,
the way he's doing it is like really impressing you, inspiring you. Is that right?
yeah, absolutely, really cool stuff.
So is that inspiring you to try to kind of uh, take some of the hit your production level to a higher level and like try to get a little more jazzy yourself when you're using different synth keyboard stuff, or is that what's going on, or is it something different?
Yeah, it's definitely a mixture of things. I feel like um, a lot of the sort of inspirational artist things will be uh, maybe some subconsciously affecting me. Like it's not always I'm consciously trying to do a specific thing that this person is doing, but I definitely uh, a common thread between artists that I've been inspired by in the last several years is having elements of jazz in well produced or yeah creative mix of production skill with sort of musical background, and generally with jazz, but not always necessarily. Yeah.
Right on. And can you talk to me about your approach? I don't know, maybe if this is like a secretive thing that you don't feel comfortable talking about, we can,
Oh
but like,
no,
do you have like a,
absolutely.
like for me, I find that I often like get into like these with my art, like these specific patterns of how I approach the process of making my art. Do you have like certain almost like patterns that you get like continue to approach your music in, or are you trying to experiment with other people's approaches and incorporate that into the way you approach making and producing your music as well?
It's definitely a mix. I definitely find myself getting into patterns and then recognize that and purposely try and break out of it uh, as both a challenge, but also I feel like if I get too much in a pattern, I can get maybe bored of what my end products end up being. They maybe start sounding too similar to me, even if other people enjoy it or think it's good. Just because I have created this sort of routine that is like at giving a more specific example, uh, for a long time, and I still will do this. I'll start by recording some sort of sound that's near me, whether it's a whistle or a bird call or something that's on my desk, and I'll sample that and then make a essentially make a put that in a sampler and use it like it's a synth sound, and that will be sort of a inspirational thread that I will then launch into the rest of the song making. But sometimes I try and break out of that routine because I don't want to just always do the same thing.
Right on. And one thing, what do you think about like the concept of like borrowing and getting inspired by other artists and not being able to like reinvent the wheel, but at the same time not making it so similar to their work that it's recognizable? Like how do you make your work distinguishably different from others, but at the same time, like, adding to some kind of a musical movement or genre?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there certain things that you do to try, like, do you have certain tactics or approaches to like trying to not make it so similar, or like, how do you go about that?
Um, Maybe for me personally, I feel like when I started making music, I in some ways made it very hard on myself
Mm-hmm.
by sort of having these expectations for what I needed to do to have my own music. I was very against. I lost
Okay,
you for a sec.
I lost you too. Yeah. Perhaps it's my Wi-Fi. If it happens again, I can move to a new location.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
Sorry about that. So, the last place that I heard you was like, so from the beginning, when you were first starting to produce music, you were making it hard on yourself because you were trying to, what were you
Oh,
trying
yeah.
to?
What I had this sort of expectations for what I needed to do to make my own music, and I essentially uh, uh, told myself foolishly now, looking back at it, it's foolish, uh, that I had to make all of my own sounds. I couldn't
I see.
use
Everything.
samples. Yeah, I had to make my own drum sounds. I had to make my own synth sounds. I need to make it everything in order to like uh, for the music to be mine. I needed to make it all myself, and what that resulted in is, uh, and so like this aspect is not foolish because it sort of pushed me to go a step further with understanding synthesis and sound design in a way that I think a lot of artists can sort of skip over because getting used to using presets on a synth or using a drum loop or whatever it is, things that can accelerate your ability to start making good sounding music. But I was diving a little bit further into these things. And so for a longer period of time, I was making stuff that didn't sound good, but I was gaining knowledge that allowed me to make more unique sounds. And I think as a result, what I naturally make when I try and make music, I don't often feel like, or at least I haven't been told by anyone that it sounds like a certain artist or something, because my natural instinct is to make sounds from scratch.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, I don't find your music to be personally reminiscent of other people's music. You definitely have your own distinct sound. And there's some songs which I feel like diverge away from what is a more recognizable Sasha sound in my mind. And then there's other songs that in my mind sound more similar to the other songs that you've produced before. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to describe it, but that's just how I project my thoughts onto your music sometimes.
Sure.
But I'm sure everybody has their own opinions. But yeah, I definitely
appreciate it.
Yeah. I don't, dude. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, I think that might be a good
That's
time
cool.
to just cut it off, unless there's anything else that you want to talk about.
Not specifically. I am definitely open to talk about whatever, and I'm also down to sort of experiment with topics.
Okay.
This is cool. Yeah.
So I mean, do you engage much in like thought about music? Or are you mostly just focused on making the music? Like, do you get engaged in like the philosophy of like music much?
In many ways, yes. I mean, I teach music production as like that's my main sort of job, and
Wow.
so I'm constantly trying to think of new ways to approach music making to people that aren't very familiar with music making. I think in many ways, yes. I'm constantly challenged to try and think about things in new ways to be able to explain it to people that have different sort of backgrounds, different levels of interest, or different ambitions with making music. Yeah, I don't know if I have a very broad philosophy, but when it comes to a specific aspect of music making, I definitely
So
think in
then,
that way.
I guess so you have students, is that correct? Or
Yep.
you don't? Okay, so um, do you like how do you find that line between giving them creative space to experiment and express themselves freely, and then trying to give them some sense of structure and like kind of imposing on them like this is how other people produce music? Like do you kind of just, is it an intuitive thing, or like how do you
It's that's something that can definitely differ like class to class. Sometimes I'll have classes that have more students, sometimes I'll have classes that have less students, and sort of depending, there'll definitely be different sorts of paces that the students want to go. If the students are really like locking in and like very obviously craving more, then it might be a little bit more structured. But if there's definitely some less focus, then we might get a little bit more abstract. And yeah, I have a couple different things that I bring to the class initially, which allow students to start just putting things together in a very simple way, essentially like giving them a set of building blocks, and they just can put the blocks together in different sort of orders and sort of create something with that. And then as things progress, then I might start breaking down, like taking one of those blocks and sort of dissecting it and showing all the things that are in that block. Like, for example, one block might be drums. And so on the first day, I give them a bunch of different drum loops, and they can put the drum loops in. Then I'll give them some different synth loops, and they can put the synth loops in, and just they'll automatically match up and sound good. But as the weeks progress, I might say, okay, now we're going to make our own drum loop, and sort of go from there. So I definitely will have a basic idea that I want to get across in a class. And then depending on if the students are craving more or are content with what I've given them, it might be more free and open, or more, here's a specific example of what you could do kind of thing.
Right on. And then what's your view on like trying to create like it seems like some artists, I don't know if it's like a record label thing or if it's like kind of more of a music culture thing, but like trying to create a cohesive like body of work, like an album, as opposed to not trying to create a collection of works, but just trying to create singles. Or like, what for you, like what are you someone that like appreciates a collective body of work, some group of artists or musicians or some kind of producer that creates like an album, like a collection of work? Or are you more of just like trying to produce like a good song every time you're making a song, and you're not really thinking in the sense of a collection of works?
Well, it definitely, my understanding of why someone would want to do an album or would want to just do a series of singles sort of depends on the approach that they have to a project. And I don't know, for example, like one reason that I might want to do an album over doing a collection of singles would be if I'm collaborating with a specific person over a specific amount of time. Because I know from experience, when you are making music in a specific amount of time and or with a specific person, there's a sort of coming together of current inspirations and current what each of the people involved is currently about and thinks is cool and wants to do. And so what that can sometimes make is the music made at that time has a specific feeling, and that can work nicely as an album, as a sort of collection of that feeling and that headspace. But if you are in a situation where you have these one-off sort of things, whether it's working with a specific person and you're just going to work with them this one time, or if I want to make like a dubstep track, I don't ever make dubstep tracks. I'm not planning on making like lots of dubstep tracks, but I want to just try and make this dubstep track. Then I might do that as a single. Yeah, I think that is a more sort abstract way, there's definitely lots of marketing reasons to do one or the other. And historically, albums were how you sold music, because they would be physical copies, and there wasn't like a practical way to sell a single song. In today's day and age, it's very easy to release a single and have lots of people listen to it. You don't need to surround it with other songs in order to sell it. But I think conceptually, the reason that I want to make an album is if I want to, if there's an overall arcing theme that I want to tie together it all into one sort of package. I don't have a personal preference on one or the other. It's just sort of where my head's at for the music that I'm making.
Okay, interesting. I like that historical component of it. I haven't thought about that. Another question I have is, so recently I was listening to like a writer and another famous painter, and they were like having coffee together, and they're both famous people. Both of them have died already. I forgot their names, but they're both saying how like the people that were doing realism paintings and the people that are doing abstract work and the people that were doing like graffiti paintings, that it wasn't like real art. And then like that made me think about like how sometimes some people of older generations fail to accept like the music and the art of the new generations. And like obviously there's some kind of like elders that are like very open-minded and accepting of like what the youth is producing as far as their creativity is concerned. With that said, it seems like there's these personal, I don't know if it's an identity thing or some kind of a just a passion about something, but that wanting to like contribute and keep something alive that's like a past tradition. Is there any like particular pre-existing like music or like contemporary music that you are particularly keen on trying to keep alive, or like I think like in museum there's the word is curator. I could be wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Like the people that like try to like preserve a painting or something. Like, is there any kind of music that you want to try to like preserve, a genre that you want to develop and try to pass on to the next generation? And or are you kind of just open to like whatever kind of music?
I love learning about the history of genres. That was something that I sort of latched onto pretty early on with my music making. Is sort of there's several really good resources and documentaries on different sort of music genres, but then there's also some really cool resources for sort of mapping in a timeline way the history of music genres. And that has always fascinated me. I do have a couple of genres that I feel that I really connected with, that I will always have elements of those genres show up in my music. But at the same time, a lot of these genres I don't have any direct cultural connection to from like my environment, and so I don't try and present myself as some sort of ambassador for these genres, because I don't feel like I am the person. I'll always be willing to talk about them, but I don't want to present myself as like, oh, here's where you can get this genre, because I don't feel like I am. I don't know. I don't feel like it's.
Yeah.
I've lived in that culture to be able to uh,
Be a representative of it.
put my name on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then is there any particular directions that music is moving into that you would want to try to like that you would prefer if it kind of slowed down in that region of music production, and that kind of like if all of the collective humans were like moving in a certain direction with producing music or making music, is there any like direction the music is moving in right now that you would prefer if they like toned it down as far as like the momentum and energy that's being invested in the direction that it's going in? And then like, is there any type of music that you're like, I think humans are putting too much energy here and I wish they would put it more maybe like somewhere else? Or are you kind of just like all accepting of whatever people are doing with music?
That's definitely an interesting question. To some degree, it sort of feels like what is uh, my old man or old guy. Uh, uh, oh, you were just talking about them
I get it. I
earlier.
get it. That like
Um,
kind of
I,
yeah.
I, 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 I don't know if I can think of a specific example right now, but I'm sure when I hear something, I will now take note of that. Something that I hear is like, oh man, it's one of those again or something. But I can't I can't think of a specific example right now. Um, in general, I'm pretty open and have this sort of philosophy that if there's some aspect of music of a song or something that I don't like, I'm mainly not hearing it in the right environment. If I heard it where the people that enjoy it hear it, I feel like I would be able to understand it more. There's a very fascinating TED talk with David Byrne, who he talks about how much the environment that the creators are envisioning when they make the music, how much that affects the actual like sonic components of it, like changes the sound.
You mean like the people you're around, or the like colors of the room that you're in, or?
Yeah, I actually mean like physical environment. For lots of styles of music, it can be where they imagine performing it. For a lot of sort of electronic music, it's imagining a situation that can be maybe dark and with flashing lights and with like very heavy, very large subwoofers. So there's lots of intricacies in the bass that can be utilized and focused on, as opposed to like something that was written for a large like concert hall. You wouldn't be able to hear the sort of same level of bass intricacies. And so if you were imagining performing in a large concert hall, the type of music you would make would be different. But I think this is oftentimes a subconscious thing that where people think about listening to this or where people think about performing this can have a big effect on how their music sounds and the quality. So I feel like if I am hearing something and I am not liking it or it's off-putting in some way, I feel like I'm not in the right space or I'm not imagining the correct space to listen to it. And yeah, because I think a lot of times when people listen to music, they are also putting themselves in the space where it sounds good. If someone was listening to, example, a dubstep song on their, I keep using dubstep as an example, I'm not sure why, but if someone was listening to a dubstep song on like their laptop speakers, you wouldn't be able to hear the bass intricacies that exist in the song. But if you know that genre of music and or you know that song, you can imagine it. You know what it's supposed to be. You have an idea of what it's supposed to be, and so your brain, I think, can fill in and make up for a lot of the sort of environment aspects that are missing. And I think that when I don't like a sound or something, I'm missing some of the context that makes it great and makes other people love it. But yeah, I don't know. That's just generally I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to music qualities.
Very interesting, very insightful. Thanks for sharing that with me and us, whoever's listening.
Sure.
Right on. Is there any other things that you wanted to talk about today, Sasha? Or
Not specifically. I don't think. Just music is fascinating and inspiring, and I still feel like I don't know what I'm doing, but I love learning and sharing what I've learned, and I'm generally pretty content with that, even if I feel like I could or should be doing more. I do get lots of satisfaction out of learning and sharing and just doing, even if um, it's not like people know me from something. I just enjoy doing it. Yeah.
right on. I'm glad that you have so much joy in your life, and I'm glad that music is doing that for you. And that's awesome that you are not only teaching others how to make music, making a living off of that, but also trying to create like spaces online with your weekly challenges for other artists to present and share their work and to learn from each other. So yeah, and you're a very positive guy, patient guy. But yeah, you're a cool dude, and I'm glad that you have music in your life and that you're able to use it in a way that brings you contentment. So that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Right on,
Right back
Sasha.
at you as far as the cool dude aspect.
Thanks, Sasha. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this talk with me. I don't have any other questions, but yeah, all I can say is thank you. And if you want to say anything more, you're 100% welcome to do so. But yeah.
Absolutely. I appreciate it so much. I always enjoy talking and sharing. And thank you for showing interest and reaching out. I'd, I'd love to do this again at some time.
All right. Perhaps we will do it again in some point in the future. Thanks, Sasha,
Okay.
so much for your time. Bye-bye.
Absolutely.
Take
Later.
care, man. Bye. Hey, everyone. If you're interested in checking out any of Sasha's music, look down in the description box below this video, and you can click on the link to check out some of his music on his SoundCloud page. Thank you for listening.